So now for our first session, we've got a keynote presentation from Daniel Knapp, Chief Economist, IB Europe, and myself. Yes, you can't get rid of me, on the European programmatic landscape, where we will also share results of attitudes towards programmatic survey and programmatic ad spend report. So welcome, Dr. Daniel Knapp, over to you.
David, thank you very much, and a very warm welcome to everybody. It's great to be here, and I think it's a very pivotal time to talk about the status quo and the future of programmatic. David and I are going to split this presentation. I'm going to focus on the market numbers, and David is going to focus on the attitudes, how people think about programmatic. Now, there's an abundance of choice in our industry, and sometimes we stand in front of topics paralyzed, like trying to pick the right bolognese sauce for the pasta. From supply chain transparency to post-third-party cookies to Apple's ATT to a more fundamental re-engineering of the entire ecosystem through new players coming on board, it's hard to pick which topics really matter and which ones to focus on. Now, I want to keep it simple today and really look at the economic foundations of the industry and share statistics on the size of the programmatic market, how it has developed, how it splits across countries, then also an outlook into 2021 final year and 2022, plus show a little bit of a teaser on a program we're working on, which is going to affect, I think, how we look at programmatic. You all know we do an annual study on programmatic advertising, but the key question is, if we look at all the 27 countries which we include, what's the definition of programmatic? And that's hard because there are probably as many definitions as there are countries. It always varies by the local trading system, whether an industry association is skewed towards publishers, intermediaries, and so forth. The biggest difference is some countries include social in programmatic, and others don't. So we provide two views of the world, one which we just call automation. There's all display and video spend, including social, that originates from an automated purchasing system, i.e. a self-serve platform and so forth. Programmatic, for us, is something more specific, where we look at the display spend, including video, outside of the walled gardens, transacted using the open RTB protocol, regardless of the transaction mechanism. And I believe that this dual view of the world really reveals two very different dynamics, and it's important to look at both of these worlds, in particular when we look at the future and the competitiveness of the open internet. Now, when we look at the automation perspective, i.e. programmatic including social, we can see that in 2020, 75% of all the spend was transacted using either some sort of self-serve platforms on social or the more narrow definition of programmatic. It was a double-digit growth despite a very tough market environment, of course, in 2020. Programmatic spend, and this is here now excluding social, so a more narrow definition. It also grew, so it wasn't just a social driver, as IO-based spend suffered decline. So we saw plus 8% growth in programmatic, and the non-programmatic bit was contracting by about 3%. So we're now in an 8 billion euro programmatic market in 2020. This is, as I'm going to show you, expected to grow double-digit in 2021, one of the fastest growth rates we've recorded in recent history. But you can see the market is, of course, 8 billion, much smaller than these 17 billion that include social. Overall, programmatic minus social is now over half of display spend, meaning that in aggregate across the European markets, which we cover, 27, programmatic is the default trading infrastructure for digital advertising. And we are, by the way, not including here out-of-home advertising, which is also increasingly becoming programmatic, but from a small basis. Remarkably, video is worth 5.2 billion of this overall programmatic 8 billion in Europe, which is peculiar and interesting because when we look at the back of the history of programmatic, starting with remnant inventory in the long-tail display category, this is a very different view on the market and a vote of confidence in programmatic, as it means that more premium, more scarce inventory is being transacted programmatically. And indeed, when we look at programmatic video, the programmatic video share is actually already at 60%. For the first time, we're also covering programmatic audio in our study. Audio is a nascent format. It is just around about 500 million in 2020. But it's remarkable that such an immature format, which has lots of organic growth, we are already seeing here that programmatic is growing around 8-9x faster than the non-programmatic bit, meaning that programmatic is, despite the small audio market, already baked in right from the start in its growth plans. And typically in other media, we've seen programmatic being bolted on at later stages when the IO-based market was more saturated. We're not seeing this currently happening in the audio space. For the first time also, we, in 2020, for our 2020 study, which we released in 2021 in around Mexico, we're breaking out programmatic, excluding social, by country. This is the first and was a major undertaking, as all countries define and also report on programmatic differently. So it required a lot of modeling on our part. The picture is quite revealing, where we can see programmatic leaders in Western Europe as the UK, the Netherlands, and Denmark. But then remarkably, we already see some of the CEE markets with a low ad spend per capita. Turkey, low ad spend per capita, but a very big market. And Serbia, also low ad spend per capita, but a very small market, being programmatic first, with over 60% of display and video ad spend being transacted programmatically. This is a picture that we didn't see around 3 years ago, where all of the CEE markets were really at the bottom of programmatic maturity. So some major shifts have happened here. But we can also see some programmatic laggards. So those markets where programmatic is below 30% of spend, for instance, where there's significant headroom for improvement. Now, we can't compare all these markets apples and apples, because the structures of the market are fundamentally different. It depends on, for instance, how strong the sell side is, what pressure the buy side is enacting on the sell side to deploy programmatic, how trading cultures have historically evolved, and so forth. So we cannot say that 76% in the UK is necessarily a benchmark that every other market should achieve, but it gives us a good view that programmatic maturity is strong across the board, and there are just very few markets. But the programmatic world, this open internet, these 8 billion are defined, is increasingly entering a more fragmented world. We're going to speak about it in this panel. I think one of the important things is that this open internet that is wedged between the Google, now the Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and other internets or walled and hedged gardens, it's not a monolithic thing. And it will become much more fragmented. There will be the anonymous web, maybe the flog web, the ID web, and so forth. So programmatic has to do a lot of things in order to ensure that it remains a scalable infrastructure. We also see, and we're going to discuss that in my Economic Trends Forum later this month, that we're seeing a move more towards one-on-one relationships and a focus increasingly not on the middle, i.e. the long programmatic supply chain, but actually on direct relationships within those applications and platforms that combine media and commerce. For instance, I think this quote here from the TripleLift founder was very telling, and this is something that we see happening across the board, where based on changes in how targeting works, more and more companies are actually trying to launch ad networks where the purchase and the conversion measurement are actually, the ad serving and the conversion measurement and the actual conversion are actually taking one place at the same time in the same app. We can see this. We started out to map the retail media market in Europe right now, majorly driven by programmatic, which is worth already around 9 billion in Europe. You'll hear more from us about this. But I think the crucial thing is that programmatic is increasingly going to be a very important driver for this, as retailers move towards from search, on-site search, to on-site display using DSPs, as well to off-site display, where they're actually buying media on behalf of their clients. So this is bringing in net new money in the programmatic market and allows programmatic technologies and approaches to thrive in a more fragmented world as well. Lastly, I'm going to dare an outlook. We see 2021 growth to be very strong, around 30% year on year for the entire digital ad market across formats. And we believe that within display and video, programmatic growth is going to be around 41%. And this is a number that is unheard of given the now maturity of the programmatic market. So we're entering a time of uncertainty, but also a time of vibrant growth. And with that, thank you. And I'm going to pass back to David.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Amazing. So we're now going to look at the factors that have contributed to the numbers presented by Daniel by reviewing our attitudes towards programmatic advertising study, which was released on October 6th this year. So it's hot off the press. In the next few slides, we wanted to share some of the top findings from the research, which looked at the benefits and challenges, the operational models and strategies for programmatic trading, the measurement of programmatic campaigns, and the future of programmatic advertising investment. Now in its 6th year, the Attitudes Towards Programmatic study has become an industry benchmark to show how programmatic advertising attitudes, adoption, and strategies are evolving. The survey attracted respondents who commanded significant volumes of advertising supply and demand. The responses came from advertisers, agencies, publishers, and tech vendors from 31 markets, and are respondents with both a pan-European and global remit. Our first question to respondents, we asked them, what are the key drivers for your company to consider investing in or increasing its programmatic trading investment? Data and targeting efficiencies contributed to continue to come out on top of the main drivers for programmatic investments in 2021. From an agency perspective, we saw the largest increases in better use of data as a main driver, with 94% of agency respondents stating that it was a key driver for them to consider investing in or increasing their programmatic trading investment. This is up from 75% in 2020. For advertisers, a better use of data and targeting efficiencies were relatively evenly split, with 58% and 57% of advertisers naming these as the two main drivers. Although this has decreased since 2020, they remain the main areas of focus for the buy side in 2021. Gaining access to premium inventory at scale is also important to programmatic decision-making for advertisers. We saw a substantial growth from 20% in 2020 to 50% in 2021. For agencies, driving trading and operational efficiencies is also vital, growing from 63% in 2020 to 71% in 2021. Driving increased granular control of media and inventory was also seen as important. Looking at the sell side, for publishers, a better use of data continues to be the #1 driver for programmatic investment from the previous year. However, in 2020, trading and operational efficiencies were citing as other top reasons. In 2021, this changed to maximizing and increasing media value. The switch can be attributed to the increase in premium video, including connected TV, being made available through programmatic pipes, which advertisers and agencies are in search of, and publishers want to get the highest premiums for. In 2021, the top barrier for advertisers was having a clear understanding of the impact of programmatic trading on total revenue. Across the board, hiring people with the right skill set was a key barrier too. In 2020, it was encouraging to see there'd been a significant drop in brand safety reported by advertisers and publishers. However, in 2021, this jumped back up to the top 3 concerns, a huge increase from 10 to 42% of advertisers and 9 to 31% of publishers. This higher focus on brand safety can be attributed to the increase of disinformation this past year linked to a number of events from COVID to US elections and many more, has meant that advertisers are moving their attention to tighter controls for web brand safety wherever they buy media. We now moved into the concept of in-housing, or we now move on to the concept of in-housing. Just as we thought the in-housing trend appeared to be old news with advertisers, this has jumped back up onto our radars again in 2021, with 50% of advertisers having in-house operations. Outsourced to an agency has dramatically reduced to 4%. Now it seems that the buy-side trend towards a hybrid model continues to evolve. The percentage of advertisers stating they have a hybrid model for programmatic trading has, in fact, over doubled from 16% in 2018 to 38% in 2021. When it comes to programmatic investment, the future looks bright. when asking advertisers how they see their programmatic traded online display advertising investment or revenue evolving over the next 12 months, 35% of respondents stated that they see this is increasing between 31 to 50%. That's a 25% increase from 2020, where only 10% of respondents saw it increasing by this much. Finally, it's important to look at the channels in which increased investment is going. And it's no surprise that connected TV has taken the largest slice of the programmatic pie. Almost 80% of ad tech vendors saw this as the biggest growth area in programmatic in 2021, and over 50% of all stakeholders agreed. This was closely followed by audio.